So you know that thing when you take a wet wipe and you use it for whatever you're going to use it for. I'm not going to judge. And then the one after it is sort of sticking out because they're interleaved.
Yeah.
And then you come back to that one maybe an hour or two later and it's now a dry wipe.
Yeah, yeah.
That's annoying.
Yes, Jonathan, it's quite annoying. See, I feel that there's a special circle of hellish torment that is reserved for people that don't use their little index finger to poke it back in when it's done. Because have you ever tried wiping a child's face?
With a dry wipe?
With a dry wipe.
Yes, I have.
They scream.
It's really,
I mean,
really
they
annoying.
scream when you wipe their face with a wet wipe.
See, I knew you'd get this.
I
knew you'd
get
get
you.
this. You're my soulmate.
You. Yes,
that's what it is.
That's it.
That was great. That was the best cold open we've ever had.
That was the cold open.
That was the cold open.
Quality content.
Quality content. Today we're talking about Innerspace, and it's a movie with a synopsis that begs for innuendo, but I'm bigger than that. That's what she said. You're listening to What's Our Seat Number? Let's have an episode.
What's our seat number?
Hello and welcome to What's Our Seat Number, the show where we ask questions like, who is that man and why is he staring into my bathroom window? I'm Jonny Gross, a filmmaker, a writer, a director, an editor, a podcaster, and a horse manure expert. With me as always is my co-host and lifelong brother. He's a 4D human, a 3D graphic artist, a 2D drawer of things, a game designer, an animator, a source of dread for old women on buses everywhere. It's PMS pinup girl and resident pooflinger, Simon Gross.
Thank you. What an intro.
What an intro.
I almost can't believe how highly you regard me in the pin-up world.
Well, I mean, it's better to be a pin-up of something than nothing.
I agree.
Yeah.
That is my aspiration in life.
Yeah.
Fuck working at Naughty Dog.
Rockstar, no?
Rockstar? Why would I want to work at Rockstar?
I don't know.
To work on Red Dead Redemption? Do you know how much detail they put into their games? The people who work there, they don't have hands anymore.
You don't put detail into your games?
Of course I put detail into my games, but there's a difference between putting detail on, say, a sign to make it look like wooded, grainy wood words, and also, having a horse that you can see its testicles if you turn the camera underneath it just at the right angle, and if it's cold, they'll shrink.
Okay.
That's Rockstar.
Very good.
That's not me. And it shouldn't be anybody else.
Okay.
Apart from Rockstar. Because they are rock stars.
Okay, but are you the kind of person that, say...
Would look at a horse's balls in the cold? Yes.
Yeah.
In the game or in the real world? Both. I do.
Today we are discussing the 1987 classic Innerspace, starring Dennis Quaid and Martin Short. But before we get there... And Meg Ryan.
Thank you.
Sorry. But before we get there...
Racist.
Before we get there, we are going to talk a little bit of... movie news. There is no movie news because the entire internet is bursting at the seams with news of Johnny Depp taking his mum to court for a custody battle over their pet badger. The trial has been widely publicized on TV, and a viewer interviewed for some rag somewhere said, "Why am I watching this? I feel dead inside."
You don't normally see such eloquent badgers on the internet, to be honest.
Absolutely. Did I read that right?
Yeah.
Yes, you did.
because
even though I say, "Oh my God, they're airing their dirty laundry out in public,"
you don't stop watching it.
Yeah, it's
because you're a thirsty bitch.
Yeah. Netflix is already making moves after the distressing news that it had lost 200,000 subscribers in the first 3 months of this year, resulting in a stock price plunge which wiped $54 billion off its market value. While the streaming company flagged it would introduce a cheaper ad-supported subscription option and crack down on the common practice of password sharing, executives also hinted that it would be cutting back on content spend. This is an issue. Because Netflix already keep cancelling their shows. They keep removing content. If you bookmark something and you plan to watch it in a couple of weeks, it'll probably be gone by the time you get to it. If you search for a movie,
just a quick thing: Netflix in our country is actually a lot more sparse in its content. So
that's what I was going to say.
Countries.
If you're looking
so it's already slim pickings.
If you're looking for a specific movie, let's say you're one of those people that says, physical media. Fuck you, I've got Netflix. You go searching for the movie you're looking for, and it will say the name of the movie in the results of the search. while not actually having it.
Yeah.
Which is incredibly frustrating. But the stuff that I do watch on Netflix is fine.
Yeah.
You know,
I enjoy having a Netflix subscription for the wonderful Netflix only shows that they make. Like the Midnight Mass and Haunting a Blind Manor and all of the Mike Flanagan ones.
Anything.
Arcane, the Castlevania show, which is now done. But like any of those only. Russian Doll. I don't know if you saw the second season, but
I didn't. I couldn't
really
get
good.
past the first episode mainly because my wife doesn't particularly like time loop stuff. So
Of the first season?
Yeah. I'm gonna
this
watch
is
it.
right up your bumhole. You will love this.
I'll give it a watch. After delivering the Ryan Reynolds-led Six Underground to Netflix back in 2019, director Michael Bay turned his attention to Ambulance. Starring Jake Gyllenhaal, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, and Isa Gonzalez, the action thriller that cost way less to make than Transformers: The Last Night follows two bank robbers who hijack an ambulance.
So that's why they call it that.
And take two first responders hostage as they're fleeing police. Ambulance has been playing in theaters for several weeks, and now life finds itself imitating art as a hijacked ambulance was involved in a high-speed pursuit in the Chicago area. At approximately 4:40 p.m., a Chicago Fire Department ambulance was stolen. As reported by ABC 7 Chicago, the man who stole the ambulance fled southbound to the Stevenson Expressway while police pursued the man for almost 2 hours. At around 6:20 p.m., the ambulance slowed to almost a stop, and it appeared as though the man was gesturing and speaking to the police out of his window. But then he took off again.
Wait, from now on, I want you to read it like one of those newscasters. And then he took off again.
Strips laid out on the road eventually took out one of the ambulance's back tires, but the chase continued until around 6:30 p.m. Central Time, when the offender stooped roughly stooped? Okay, this is from the article. This is from the article that I copy-pasted. And I'm reading the autocue. And I'm reading whatever is written on the autocue.
Fuck you, San Diego. Oh no,
Wow.
go fuck yourself, San Diego.
This has been a massive shit show. Basically, a dude stole an ambulance. It's unclear. Okay, so basically they caught him. They took him into custody. It's all very predictable. It's unclear why he stole the ambulance. So
It's not a classic anecdote, is it, Jonathan?
Just a bloke took an ambulance. I did read this before, but obviously it didn't quite pan out the way I had.
Like when you read something in the middle of the night and it's really, really funny, and you try and tell someone.
Yesterday, I tried to pack in 2 days worth of work and planning for this podcast.
Yeah.
So I think I may have been a little bit.
I think you're good. It was funny anyway. But,
Yeah, it was funny because I fucked
it
up.
crashed and burned. But,
Absolutely.
that's content gold as well.
Content gold. That was movie news.
That story really grows on you as you think about it. As you...
Yeah, life imitated art and a bloke stole an ambulance. It really could have been a paragraph. So I came up with a new game that I thought might be fun for us.
Ooh, goody.
Yes. It's called You're Talking Bullshit.
It's bullshit. Bullshit.
Bullshit.
Bullshit, 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 bullshit.
Give me the shit.
Thank you. So
He said to me, I'm going to play the jingle for you live.
yeah.
So I haven't heard that yet. It's actually really funny. He just held his phone up to the... You guys heard it all as proper in its thing, but I heard it through the microphone. It's really funny. Sorry, go on. I'm composed. I can do this. What are the rules?
In this game, I have combed through the darkest depths of the internet to... Actually, it's not true. There is a website that collects all of the worst Amazon reviews.
Okay.
Reviews of movies that are just absolutely ridiculous. They range from 1 star to 2 stars. And from the review, you have to guess what movie I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
Now, there's 1 or 2 here that I know you're not going to get, but I had to include them because they were hilarious.
Okay.
And when I say they were hilarious, I mean they were hilarious yesterday. And they may not be hilarious anymore today.
So when I said to you yesterday, oh, good, you've come up with a new game. Oh, this is fun. We're going to hear the jingle live. Just a quick question. Is this game going to make me look stupid? And you said no. What you really meant was yes, but it's on you because you make yourself look stupid.
I don't think it's going to make you look stupid.
All right, let's go.
Okay. So the subject line is,
By the way, you have no idea. Like when I listen back to these and I listen to myself, I think that I was listening to you said you were doing one of the crazy castings with K's thing, and it was Jeremy Irons, and you said a scarred Disney villain or a disfigured Disney villain, whatever it is, you know, and it was so obvious, and I'm like screaming at myself, it's Jeremy Irons, you tosser, right? Like,
Well, that's what I said to you last week, and I say last week.
You mean
cynically,
last
because I really
episode
mean
and not a month
like
ago.
a month ago, was that it's on the tip of your tongue.
Well, hang on a minute. But why
And you
has
doubt
it been
yourself.
so long? We had COVID.
We had COVID.
We both got COVID.
Yeah, so
both our families got COVID.
you gave me COVID. Your friend gave
don't
you
know
COVID.
that.
I do know that.
You don't know.
You said to me, I've got COVID, check yourself. I checked myself and I had COVID, and
Yes,
we had just
but
seen
you
each other
don't-
2 days before.
You don't know, right, that it was the friend who gave it to us. Because he isn't sure when he got it. We all checked ourselves on the same day.
Yeah, it's been a while. But it's also been a while since I announced the name of this game, and I think people have forgotten. So here it is again. It's called You're Talking Bullshit.
It's bullshit. Bullshit.
Bullshit, 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 bullshit.
Give me that shit.
Proud of that jingle, aren't we?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, I'm ready. Let's go. Movie number 1.
Movie number 1, the subject line is, not the movie with clay sheep. Absolutely horrified. I thought it was a claymation movie with lambs. I got confused with Shaun the Sheep. My 3-year-old hasn't said anything since watching this. 1 star.
Not the movie with clay sheep.
Yes. What movie are they talking about?
Clay sheep? Wait.
Absolutely horrified. I thought it was a claymation movie with lambs. I got it confused.
Oh, Silence of the Lambs?
There you go.
Oh, no. Why would they think... Whoa. That's hysterical.
No, you see, the
though.
kicker is my 3-year-old hasn't said anything
I thought
since
it was
watching
that.
this. Why let them watch the entire movie?
Yeah, you noticed that it's not the clay... That's got to be rubbish. That's bullshit.
It has to be.
Bullshit.
Okay. Number 2. There were no wolves in the movie. 1 star.
Dances with Wolves?
No,
No.
it's not that. But it's close. No, it's not close, actually. I'll give you a hint. It's got absolutely nothing to do with wolves, and it takes place in, like, offices and stuff.
Oh, The Wolf of Wall Street?
Correct.
Got absolutely nothing to do with Wolves. 1 star. Was that the review?
Yes. There were no wolves in this movie.
I just want to know who this person is who's gone to see a movie. Oh, it's going to be about wolves. Just up my alley.
Okay, this one I'm going to tell you what the title is, because you'll never get it,
Okay.
but... Free Willy 4, Escape from Pirates Cove. I had no idea that this movie existed.
I didn't know that was a movie.
At this point, we must assume Willy either loves captivity or he's an attention-seeking whore. 1 star. I love these. Okay.
I like this game. This is good. Okay, go on.
Subject line. This could never happen.
Okay.
Oh yeah, a boat this big could really sink. 1 star.
It's not Titanic.
It's Titanic.
Oh, God.
Subject line. Not a book. Despite being labeled as a book, this product is actually a disc.
Is this something that I really should get?
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like really
yeah.
easy. Not a book. Okay. hang
So
on.
it hints that
No.
it's a book.
It's yeah. I'm trying to think of movie names with. I'm really tired. Hang on. It's a book that's a disc. I should get this. I'm like, there's something
Yeah.
here. I don't know. Hang on.
I'll give you a hint.
Don't give me.
Disney?
Oh, Disney.
A Disney movie with the word book in the title. Are you kidding me right now?
No, it's not.
Yes,
it's not the Jungle Book.
It's totally the Jungle Book. And then
What the fuck?
And then I've written here, after he gets it, the Jungle Disc would have been a more appropriate title.
What is the fucking problem?
There are
These are
idiots
just
out
making
there.
me angry. This isn't making me laugh. These are making me angry. That would be the last thing that I even think of, because I'm not stupid like that. I'm stupid,
Okay.
but I'm not that stupid.
I'm gonna give you a little hint so that you can orient yourself in this. But this is a second sequel in a series that was produced not long ago. I'm beginning to think he's just a bad parent. 1 star.
No clue. No fucking clue.
It is, in fact, Taken 3.
Oh, I see it now.
Yeah. Okay.
I never would have thought of that. Do you know that I've actually never seen the Taken movies?
You've really never seen the Taken
I've really
movies.
never seen them. I've seen all the spoofs that you like, and I've seen scenes from it, but I've never actually seen the movies. Anyway.
Okay. And there's one more, and then I'm going to give you another one that was just funny.
Okay.
But I'll have to tell you the title because you won't get it.
Okay.
It's hard to believe that a hotel that size in Colorado would close in the winter with all the skiing business. Which actually is not necessarily
The Shining.
talking bullshit.
It's The Shining.
It's The Shining,
but
correct.
but it's not wrong. That's not incorrect. That's not right.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
too snowy. Really? But
Okay.
there's people who ski. Yes. No. I've never thought of that before.
Okay, so
Then it actually lends credence to the idea that they know that the hotel is dangerous for people.
Ooh.
Fan theory.
Okay, so there's one more here. It's for the Emoji Movie.
Okay. Which also I've never seen.
Right. But it's funny all the same.
Okay.
I have an aggressive niece who likes to pick fights at her elementary school. And she even bit one of her classmates last August. As punishment, she had to watch this. And she hasn't even raised a fist since. 5 stars. That was You're Talking Bullshit. Play the jingle again.
It's bullshit. Bullshit.
Bullshit, 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 bullshit.
Give me that shit.
Very happy with yourself, aren't you?
Was this fun?
It was fun.
Was this fun? Did you enjoy yourself?
It was fun. I feel a little stupid about the Jungle Book one, but it was just so far from... Like, it's one of those
You
things...
can't believe somebody would be that
someone
dumb.
would be that stupid. Like, it's... I was saying to Shosh, because there's a thing in Aaron Sorkin shows...
Right.
Where they talk about how stupid it is that there are these disclaimers on certain products. Like, if you buy an iron, right? Don't iron your clothes while wearing them, right? And they have like this whole thing about how could people be so stupid? And then
Right.
there's this thing where, the person who he's talking to says, well, what do you want me to do about this? And he says, I want people to iron their clothes while wearing them. It's like, they're so stupid. And like, I was looking in, I was bored and I was looking at the side of the milk carton as you do. Or as my wife does when I don't provide her with interesting enough conversation at the table. I was looking at it and it says contains dairy. And it's like, but it's milk. And why does it? But here's the thing: it says it in like 2 different places, but like as in one on top of the other. And I just got really uppity about it. I got really annoyed, and she was like, they have to do that.
Hold on, I have to ask you a question.
They are so stupid.
I have
People
to
are
ask
so
you a question
dumb.
now.
What?
How long did this rant go on for? I have to know. Was it like something that carried on into the next day?
It wasn't into the next day, but it was
An hour?
3 minutes. No, it was 3 minutes of me non-stop going at the fact that the carton says it in 2 different places. And she's like, I know. And I'm like, no, but look, right? And then she's like, no, I know. I share your... They're stupid. People are stupid, but they have to put it on. And I'm like, why do they have to put it on? And then Shosh, checked out of the conversation at the 3-minute mark. She was like, I'm done with this. And then I just put it in the fridge. I put it in the fridge angrily, the fridge door felt the impact of my displeasure with this discovery. And I closed the door and I was just sitting at and I started Googling products that have disclaimers on them and just the sheer wealth of... So about an hour this was up my bum. I let it go by the morning because, I'd moved on to bigger and better things such as, oh God, I'm so tired. Why won't my child go to sleep? Oh God, please shoot me in the face. Parenthood's a magical thing.
Yeah, it's magical.
Should we move on?
Yes.
This is going to be a long episode.
Okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
People
missed us.
People seem to enjoy it.
They missed us.
I don't know why, but they do. So today's movie is Innerspace. We're going to have now the Tagline Game.
Oh joy.
Oh joy. And this is where I give Sai 3 taglines and he has to guess which tagline from the original poster of the movie is in fact the real tagline of the movie, and the other 2 are just other movies.
Right.
Your first tagline is this: Heroes don't get any bigger.
Okay.
An adventure of incredible proportions.
Okay.
Adventure doesn't come any bigger than this.
They're all exactly the fucking same. There's hero doesn't get any bigger than this, and then there's adventure
Heroes don't
doesn't
get any
than
bigger. An adventure of incredible proportions. An adventure doesn't come any bigger than this.
Any one of these I'm going to pick. It could be either any of them and none of them, and also it's Schrodinger's tagline.
They're all Innerspace. No, sorry, I'm kidding.
It's Schrodinger's tagline.
Okay, Schrodinger's tagline. Just pick one, fine.
Yeah, I'm going to... let's gamble. I'm feeling in between the middle one, the second one.
An adventure of incredible proportions?
Yeah.
You are somehow correct.
Away!
Heroes Don't Get Any Bigger is Ant-Man.
I thought it might be like a movie about a giant person.
Right. And Adventure Doesn't Come Any Bigger Than This
It could be anything.
Willow.
Well, that literally could have been any movie.
Which is quite a bit condescending to little people.
Little people in that movie,
yeah. Okay. So that was the tagline game.
So glad I came today.
That's what she said. So let's talk about context. Innerspace. What do you remember?
You're not stooping to innuendos today, are you?
Not at all. Not at all.
What do I remember? Here's the thing. I have only seen this movie once. Now twice.
Shocks me slightly. But then again, now that I think about it, our paths did somewhat overlap with a lot of movies, but mainly because I introduced you to them.
Yeah.
And Innerspace I never owned.
So
I saw
caught
it
this
quite
on
a few times on TV, yeah.
I remember catching it on TV, and I watched, I think, all of it. And there are certain things that I remember.
On the telly.
Yeah, on the telly. There are some things that I definitely remember. And I could, if you were to say to me, Innerspace, I would know exactly it's Dennis Quaid, it's Meg Ryan, it's Martin Short. I remember the thing where he gets, injected in the butt. I remember the baby scene. I remember him kissing her and him moving between Dennis Quaid moving between them. You can talk about the synopsis just very quickly, and then all of these things will make sense.
Yeah, the synopsis is that, and this is why it begs for innuendo, because it's basically one man inside another man.
Yeah.
But I said I wasn't going to do that. So
Dennis Quaid is a pilot, right, or an astronaut?
He's a fighter pilot, yeah.
Or he's a fighter pilot,
and he agrees to take part in an experiment. Which, interestingly, they never really explain what the experiment is for.
I think,
but you kind of get the idea that they're trying to enter the human body so that they can find things like tumors
and heal it. It seems medical.
Yeah,
I got a medical vibe from
it.
He gets into this big machine and
he gets shrunk.
He gets shrunken down
in like a little spaceship thing, which looks a lot like the spaceship from Joe Dante's Explorers, which was 2 years previous.
Which I've never seen. The lab is attacked right after he's shrunk, and one of the scientists takes the syringe and runs away from the bad guy, who has an amazing henchman name, and we'll talk about that in a bit. And there's a whole chase through a mall. Meanwhile, Martin Short's character has been introduced as a hypochondriac a little earlier in the movie. He happens to be in the same mall, and he gets injected in the butt with Dennis Quaid's spaceship. And Dennis Quaid starts communicating with him and saying, "Listen, I need you to take me to these scientists and find a way to make me big again and get out of you, because I'm going to run out of oxygen." That's the synopsis of the movie, right? In
it's
short.
just
and there are bad guys who are after the technology, and they're trying to capture Martin Short.
There's a MacGuffin, which is like the second chip
that will make him big.
Yeah, there's one chip in the spaceship, and there's one chip in the machine the shrinking machine.
Exactly.
So it's so well plotted. I love it.
It's such an intriguing premise.
Yeah.
Right. And
very high concept, and it's smacks of 80s.
It's so 80s,
but in a good way.
No, yeah.
In a very good way, because the way that the cause and effect, the way that things sort of in the same way that I always talk about
Indiana
the opening
Jones.
of Temple of Doom.
How did I know?
Yes, it's just like one thing begets the next thing.
I get you. You get me. This is why we podcast.
Yes.
Indiana Jones, that these things just roll into each other, and he falls into these situations, and they happen to him, and it feels organic. Yeah. And it doesn't feel like
written,
a plotted.
Yeah.
So
you can't see the plotting.
So there's a lot of because I remember liking this movie, but I haven't seen it since I was a kid. I was very sort of I'm worried that I'm not gonna connect with the 80s vibe somehow. I thought. Sorry, I burped.
How is that? Because
I love 80s.
Always connect with the 80s
I do. But I was worried somehow that I was going to think it was dumb. And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I did feel that there were certain things that my, sort of
modern brain,
my modern brain was going, and then there was a part of me that was going, come sit down next to me and just enjoy the 80s.
There are a few things, but we'll get into that afterwards.
And there were definitely things like half-shrunk bad guys that I did not remember and that made me snarf my drink. There were a few I laughed so much during this movie. Anyway, you go, context.
I remember I used to have this thing, and Babs, you'll remember this, that our parents used to go into the salon lounge area, which was separated by a big heavy glass door, and we used to sit in the kitchen on sort of evening Saturday nights. Saturday nights were a big thing. We used to sit and watch Gladiators and Blind Date. And, yeah.
Curtsy.
And then, and we used to watch...
That woman was teeth with a face on it.
Teeth with a face on it, yeah. So we used to watch stuff on Saturday nights, and then there was usually like a movie premiere or something like that. I remember a lot of movies that I watched like that. There was Pacific Heights. Yeah. There was, Demolition Man. There was... License to Kill, I remember seeing for the first time in that kitchen.
Oh, really?
And Innerspace was one of those, and I just remember that there was a magic to that for some reason, and I have really fond memories of watching TV on that tiny little screen in the kitchen, sitting on a computer chair or something.
Yeah.
And just drinking all of this stuff in, and I must have been like 7 or 8 or something, and seeing these things that were making huge impressions on me, and things that I would go to school the next day and I would be playing in my head, and teachers would be saying to me what a lazy daydreamer I was and all that stuff, and that I was like fantasizing about these movies that I'd seen and replaying them in my head, because let's face it, kids, school's boring.
Let's face it, adults. School is boring.
Yeah. So I have really fond memories of those times. And Innerspace, even though I never had it on VHS and I never had it on DVD, I now have it on Blu-ray. But it was just one of those movies that I always caught whenever it was on.
Yeah.
And I also remember watching Alf. You remember Alf?
Yes.
No problem.
No problem.
I remember Lynn's boyfriend in Alf took her to see a movie about a guy who gets shrunk and then injected into someone else. Oh. Obviously, we Brits would say shrank, but the Americans say shrunk. And as a kid, I remember like pointing at the screen, going, "I understood that reference." Anyway, so I used to love watching this movie. So
here's the thing: is that we both already watched this because of time constraints. We watched it separately.
We were going to try and fool you by playing the music.
No. We would never lie to you. We would never lie to you. But what we are going to do is, because we know that people don't like change. I mean, we say that only Jews don't like change, but the truth is that nobody likes change.
Nobody likes change. No.
Is that we're still going to uphold the pretense that we're going to go and watch the movie, because we know that your little brains will explode if we do anything differently. Mm-hmm. So, Jonathan, would you like to go and watch the movie?
Let's go watch the movie!
Roll it!
Great. Did you enjoy the movie that we just watched together?
Yes, I greatly enjoyed the movie that we watched in the same room next to each other on the couch.
Yep, indeed. So, would you like to talk about that?
Yeah, let's dive right in, man.
Right in. How do you feel?
Here's the thing. A lot of movies now leave me with a very strange feeling. And when I was a kid, and I think I've talked about this in previous episodes, when I was a kid, I used to always feel like, oh, this is I feel like I've gone on a ride or I've gone on an adventure, and it, I feel like I was part of that, and you can kind of still recall the elation of that adventure after the movie is finished. It's like an aftertaste.
Yeah, I used to call it like an ordeal movie, like Die Hard as well. That you see what the character's been through, and you kind of feel like you've been along on that ride. I also felt that watching Innerspace. Yeah.
So I felt that yesterday, and it was a very sort of familiar feeling. That also, after we watched The Rocketeer, I always feel that feeling. Because when a character has gone on an arc and you see how they've changed from what they were at the beginning, to the end. And listen, you know, you can say like movies now are more subtle in their arcs, and sometimes, you know, less subtle.
Because sometimes there's really nothing under the surface.
That's true, but there are movies that are,
of course there are,
extremely like there's a stupidly obvious example, but like something like Joker, right?
Right, yeah.
You know, his transformation, you know, the whole way through the movie, he's going up those steps and then he dances down those steps as Joker, and there's like this and obviously you don't come out of that movie feeling elated and like you've, you know, gone on an adventure, but I'm saying there are more subtle. Well, that really illustrates my point, is that, you know, movies now that take you on that sort of character arc, the character arc is very strong and it's very, you know, but it leaves you either feeling very, very hurt or dirty or uncomfortable, because everything has to be dark and gritty and depressing now.
I noticed a lot of really great character work in this movie, and it's not one of those movies that's like, you know, that's gonna have a profound effect on you like Joker or something like that, or The Godfather or whatever it is. It's a fun popcorn movie, and it wears that on its sleeve very much. And Joe Dante is the kind of director that sort of infuses every one of his movies with this manic Looney Tunes kind of energy, because he's obsessed with Looney Tunes. Yeah. If you watch Gremlins 2,
it's so nuts. Like, yeah.
If you watch Gremlins 2, like that, it's just drenched in that kind of energy.
Martin Short is, I feel, perfect in that slot. Like, you know, he's a moving cartoon character. I can't
imagine anybody else playing that role.
Just like I can't really imagine anyone else playing Dennis Quaid's role. I think Meg Ryan's role could have been played by absolutely anybody.
Yeah, it's very underwritten. I was thinking about this. She's very much a part of the plot. She's a driving force of the plot. But I feel like she's given short thrift.
Yeah.
And that she's somewhat objectified.
Yeah, very much. It's an 80s movie. It's not written for today's.
Look, I mean, I'm not talking like, you know, Michael Bay, Megan Fox bent over the bonnet of the car.
It's not anything like that. But she is a woman who for the men to sort of
but in context though,
fall in love with, as it were.
Yeah, sure. But in context, I mean, and like, this is coming from me. I did think about this during the movie, but at the same time, not justifying it necessarily, but sort of explaining maybe where it's coming from, because I was that. That Martin Short is that kind of nerdy guy who doesn't believe that any woman would ever look at him twice. He has the self-confidence of a peanut. Yeah. And you know, this woman is like paying attention to him because he's being infused with the spirit of the guy that's inside him, the hero inside, literally in this case, who is Tuck. And I think that what Meg Ryan is attracted to in Martin Short is Tuck.
Yeah.
Because he's saying the words that Tuck is kind of telling him in his ear to say. Mm-hmm. He's wearing his jacket, he's driving his car, and he's come along on this sort of like spy mission. Like the movie kind of like becomes this kind of quasi spy movie hidden inside a sci-fi epic. You know,
there's some really interesting stuff, because there's like these two worlds happening at the same time, right? You've got, you know, the world outside where, you know, they're racing against the clock to get him out of Martin Short and also stop the bad guys from stealing the technology and escaping the bad guys and whatever. And then the bad guys are trying to capture them so that they can inject, you know, their own small bad guy into Martin Short and whatever. And so this you know, Dennis Quaid is dealing with inside his own little world, which is the, you know, the inside of Martin Short's body. You know, like whenever Martin Short starts hyperventilating or something, or his heart starts beating too fast, so he starts getting pulled along the blood
there's
flow.
An effect. There's a
you know, so he's dealing with his own problems in there, and he's like, you know, I've got a problem here. I'm going to have to go offline, and you know, you'll have to deal with this by yourself.
Because it's like it's like the Fantastic Voyage. It's kind of sort of in a space. Yeah. Like he's going through this sort of fantastical journey in this whole other world, which we sort of take for granted, because obviously you can't really go inside somebody else's body.
Yeah, there's something very cool that Martin Short says to him, which is, you know, I'm just thinking about this now. You're seeing parts of my body that I will never see. Yeah. And it's like it's like little things like that, which I think a real person would probably say if this were to, it's like, it's really weird that you're able to see it. So it's nice that he's acknowledging that. But what's really cool is just how they managed to juggle these two things and have them work alongside each other. Like, he's having problems outside, there are problems going on inside,
right?
And how they use, I really like the fact that Martin Short can't just hear him because he's inside him. Dennis Quaid had to
they explain it with technology.
He had to find his way up to the ear canal and place some kind of beacon so that he can a speaker so that he can transmit to him through the spaceship, and that's really, really cool. Also, he attaches something to his optical nerve, which causes him a lot of pain at first, and then he gets used to it, and then he's able to see what Martin Short can see. And so, there's this great like progression of where am I and what am I seeing and who are, what's all this. And
there's a geography to it that and it's so packed. This is what I noticed when watching it yesterday. Sorry, just now. Is that it's so packed full of not just plotting and cause and effect and sort of events that sort of one leads on from the other, but also like little nuances and little comedy bits. Like, for example, Mr. Wormwood, the manager of the Safeway. So just randomly at the beginning of the movie, he says like, "You're late, Jack. You're late." And Jack goes in, and then this woman comes up with a chicken, and she goes to him, "Smell this.
Go on, smell it.
And it's just such a random, and you can imagine,
strange.
I can imagine Joe Dante sitting behind the monitor, just like cracking the fuck up at that.
Yeah.
And nobody else knowing what,
But it's also like, it's funny because, he works at a shop with, this smells off to me, like, smell this. Would you sell this to people? Like, I can imagine the rest of the conversation. It's really funny.
There's just so much like offbeat shit that goes on in this movie. And the same thing with like, and I noted this down, is that there's no way that Jack would have dreamed, like had some kind of premonition that the orange-haired woman was gonna pull out a gun, and like all that stuff. There's no way that he would have known that was gonna happen. There's no way that he would have dreamed it.
Yeah.
And you're not like talking about some kind of ESP or whatever. Like it's set in the real world, kind of.
Yeah.
So that's always bothered me. But he wanted that joke in there. He wanted to have that payoff.
Yeah.
And so he put it in, and the sort of logic be damned.
Yeah.
And I respect that about him. I really do. And it's also a great bit. I think
it works as a great bit, but it for me that was a little bit off. Like I don't know. There are certain things about some of the random.
Yeah, but I enjoy that payoff. Is that like the amount, like he's passing products through the scanner, and because Tuck's in his body, like trying to connect to his ear canal and his optical nerve and all that kind of stuff. He's shooting out some kind of signal, and it's fucking with the till, and all the amounts are going up and up and up and up, and it's over like $100,000 or something like that. Yeah. And and the woman's like, "I don't have that kind of cash, sweetie." And then she pulls out
the dream that he has.
Yeah, and then she pulls out a gun, which turns out to be a cigarette lighter.
Yeah.
And like I vividly, like, the reason why I don't care is like, if I was watching this now for the first time, I'd be like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But because I remember it so vividly from my childhood, and I enjoyed it so much as a child, that little bit, that's why it kind of...
There's something here I wanted to ask you about, and I've written it down. If we've already brought it up, I've written down... Is this actually happening? Or because it's in his subconscious, because he had a dream about it, right? Is he imagining this whole thing and she's not really there? It's only happening because Dennis Quaid is fucking around with his body.
That's interesting. It's an interesting take, yeah.
That was my take from it. I was like, this doesn't make sense unless it's because it's in his subconscious and these weird waves that are going through his body are like making it come to the forefront of what he's seeing. It's making him hallucinate. But because his body's adjusting to this foreign entity.
Yeah, but
right?
there's no representation of that anywhere that Tuck's making him hallucinate.
Well, I mean, like, there's a little bit when you first see the redhead woman. I don't know, maybe we have to go and have a look at it, but like it looks kind of like it's not fisheye, but like it's
They shot a lot of the movie on these wide angle lenses, and it's usually used for comic effect. But
So I'm just wondering.
But I mean, it's very possible that there's a disconnect between the amount on the till counting up and him seeing the woman. That like as an effect of the amount counting up, he is sort of hallucinating the red-haired woman.
I think he's hallucinating still there in the wide shots. Thing. I think that the numbers that he's seeing are also not actually going up.
I'm not sure because it's also established that Tuck can manipulate electronics on the outside.
But we don't know that he's using an EMP in that moment.
Yeah, we do. We see him like flicking switches, and he says, "I'm like trying to send a signal out." And when he says that, that's when the numbers start counting up. So there is an actual effect in the outside world.
But he makes a VCR explode. Oh, but that's because he's overcharging it. It could be either. I really think that
it's open to interpretation, I guess. But I mean, I'm just saying, like, sort of the visual language of that scene is that in the wide shots you can see her standing there. So,
yeah.
I mean, okay. it makes sense that she is there. So the thing that I would question is the idea of having that scene in the beginning with the doctor where he explains the dream.
Yeah.
Is that is a questionable decision from Joe Dante, but I really enjoy the setup and the payoff of that.
I'm really interested to. If ever there was an opportunity to ask, I'd ask.
I really want. What I have right now is a Blu-ray that is completely vanilla. There's nothing on it.
There's no special features.
No special features whatsoever. But I just had to buy it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that at some point Arrow or I don't know, the Shout Factory or whatever a boutique company is going to come out with a. With a fantastic new 4K remaster and special features and all that kind of stuff, and it would be really great to hear. You know what? Actually, I think there is a commentary on my Blu-ray. I'll go back and listen to it.
I wanna just
because maybe because it's Joe Dante talking over the movie, so maybe he mentioned something like that. Yeah.
So let me know. I wanna move backwards a little bit because there's something that bothered me at the beginning of the movie that I don't know why. Like, I'm able to accept it in movies that I watched when I was a kid, and I know that the line's going to be there. But when I watch a movie, it's not really for the first time, but it kind of was, because I haven't seen it since England.
Wow, that's a long time.
That's a long time. So it's kind of, and even I'm impressed by the fact that I can remember that as much as I did. Right.
Right. That's how much of an impression it made on me, anyway.
Yeah. It's a great movie, but there's the thing for me is that they have the usual dialogue. There's the I'm not sure what his role is. He's like high up in the Air Force, and he's a bit of an asshole. And he's talking about Tuck in the car with the guy who's in charge of the shrinking project.
Right.
And he says,
he's the guy that he has a fight with at the beginning.
Yeah, and he's like, he's a loose cannon and makes up his own rules, like, and he doesn't follow everybody else's rules. And it's like the same. Riggs is a loose cannon, I
have thoughts about this actually.
Really?
And I did make a note.
Okay, let me hear your thoughts.
Okay, no, so what I noticed was that in the lab scene. From the lab scene to the bad guys coming in, and gassing everybody. And
I have something about that too.
Right, and then Ozzy running off on the bike and all that kind of stuff. There are certain things that tap into the visual language of film and things that we're used to. Not necessarily because it actually is true to life, but because we've been conditioned by movies that we've seen.
Okay.
Sort of like, cinematic conventions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I feel like Dante does a lot of sort of light parody and excessive parody. Okay. So the excessive parody maybe later on when, Martin Short changes face and becomes the cowboy, and there's all that slapstick stuff, and the two villains get shrunk down 50%, and they have the Helen versus damn.
Yeah, that's a little too much. It's a little too much.
I was literally last night. Okay, let's just be honest. We watched it separately. I watched it last night. I watched the second hour of it last night. My wife went to bed, and I was stifling my giggles because I was cracking the fuck up throughout the entire second half of the movie. And I've written here, second half gets really silly. And it does, exactly on the hour point when he's in the meat van and Scrimshaw is introduced. That's when it just gets ridiculous, and I love it.
I can't take it anymore.
I love it. I was cracking up. Anyway, so what I'm saying is that Joe Dante even though he really knows how to put together an action scene and all that kind of stuff, he's still doing it kind of half tongue-in-cheek, which is why when movies today are very earnest about those kinds of conventions, it kind of, like Fast and Furious and all that kind of stuff, it makes you go, these guys don't know that they are in a parody.
Right.
Even though it's ridiculous. Fast and Furious going into space is the kind of thing where you go, oh, this, it's like if they would have actually had a car jumping over a shark.
Yeah,
okay?
right.
You know what I mean?
And that's what they're going to do in the next one,
I'm
probably.
sure
is they're
they are.
actually going to have a car
sure
jumping
they
over
are.
the shark.
There's there's that whole thing of they've come to so many, the number of sequels has increased so much that in the next one they're going to go to space, and they actually did. So in today's movies, the sort of the sarcasm and the humor is lost on people.
Yeah.
And Joe Dante was doing it back in the 80s, and a lot of people just didn't get it.
Right.
So that's why I really enjoy those kinds of things. He's a loose cannon. I'm fairly certain that was not serious. I think it was something like
No, but it's a conceit of 80s movies.
Of course it is. Of course it is. But
it's
in this particular case, it's the kind of thing that I imagine that Joe Dante saw Star Wars and thought, oh my God, come on, we have to have this character be Han Solo piloting the ship, but he's inside somebody's body. Like it's a piss take.
Sure, but there's something to me about the fact that we have this whole opening sequence that establishes the fact that he's a loose cannon, and that he's he goes in, he's drunk, he makes a whole speech drunk, and he punches the hell out of people.
Yeah, but it establishes the fact that he's a drunk and he's an asshole.
Dude, I got it 100% from that opening sequence. That was all the storytelling they needed to give me about the fact. Even if they would have had Meg Ryan, I'm sure that she says it. You could have been more, something like that.
Yeah,
that would have been overdone, but it would have been less than what we got in that car sequence, which is fine. And again, all the 80s movies have that. Yeah. And even that moment
Gun.
In what's it called?
Top Gun came out the year before, the same thing. But that's the thing. I don't think it's on the level of something like Hot Shots that is definitely doing it to parody. But but I mean, it's the kind of thing that those shots that I always talk about in the car chase in Raiders of the Lost Ark. When you see Indiana Jones climb up into the car, and then you hear the punch, and you see the first guy fall out the right-hand side, and then you hear another punch, and then you see the shot of the guy falling out the left-hand side. And that to me is just it's Spielberg going, I love serials, and I'm going to try and take all of those conventions and all of those cliches and put them into a movie that is inherently a B movie, but I'm going to elevate it.
I agree with everything you're saying. I even agree with the fact that this line is fine in this movie. It's just that there's something about the delivery, right? That I understand that maybe Joe Dante was trying to take the piss, but the guy who's delivering the line is not in sync with that. It doesn't feel like he's on that level. It doesn't feel like he's doing that. But anyway,
right.
I have I've written here basically. So what happens is that the terrorists come in and they say, we're here to fix the phones. Right. And then the security guard gets on the phone. He goes, do you know anything about some people coming to repair the phones? And the guy takes out what looks like a fire extinguisher. He gasses him and he goes, ah! And he falls down. So
he's head whips back.
What I've written, it's so fast. It's so
brilliant.
Fast. There's no anticipation to the movement. He literally just almost like the footage has been sped up. I've written, I'm sorry, what did the terrorists just spray the guard with? It looks like a fire extinguisher and the gas knocks him out immediately. No anticipation, no chance, laughed my bollocks off, right? Now, so I was like, oh, maybe that was just a one-off and we're not going. They go in and they literally, all of them have these mini fire extinguishers that are all, just full of this magical gas that immediately knock people out. And you've got people dropping like flies.
There's a shrinking machine.
No. I'm with you, 100%. I'm with you. But the difference is, and I want to talk about this in VFX attic, right? But there's something about the design of the machine that somehow feels like it makes sense, right? So this just seems very lazy.
I like it. I just
I liked it too. As I said, I was laughing. I think that's one of those things that's played for laughs. I don't think that's a real thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, I thought it was really cool, and there's just a whole load of things from that point on that are hysterical.
But this is I just want going back to the sort of terrorists, invaders, whatever they are, the robbers. I like that convention of 80s movies in general, around that time, that you could have this kind of family-oriented adventure movie that then becomes, somewhat nasty.
But
it's in
very striking contrast to an 80s movie like Die Hard, where...
Well, because Die Hard is not a family movie.
Right, that's the thing, is that the terrorists come in and immediately shoot the guy in the face with, a silenced pistol or a I don't remember.
Right.
But like, in this movie, it's cartoon violence. It's very sort of like, Ghostbusters, nobody's really dying in this movie,
but it's the kind of thing that makes an impression on an 8-year-old, because it's like, it was rated PG, right?
Yeah.
And the same thing with Sister Act. Sister Act is a comedy, and there's like mob violence. There's Harvey Keitel.
Yeah.
Whoopi Goldberg witnesses Harvey Keitel shooting one of his men, and she goes into witness protection. That's the whole concept of Sister Act, and I just love that contrast, because you don't expect in a light family comedy like Sister Act to have that kind of darkness, like the murder subplot.
Yeah.
And in this movie, you have that whole thing where Mr. Igo, who plays this sort of silent Bond henchman, which we'll talk about in a second. I can see that you're nodding your head and smiling. Is that like he shoots Ozzy, the lab manager, the head of the head scientist, whatever, and he's got a big blood patch on his back and all that kind of stuff. And I find that's like the kind of thing that I always remembered, in the same way of Inigo Montoya getting stabbed 7 times by the Six-Fingered Man. It's all about how it's
lots
handled. Of blood. Yeah,
it's all about how it's handled, how it's shot, how it's presented. And I think the same about the whole loose cannon thing. How it's served up to you. It could be the cheesiest thing in the world. In this movie, it's going to work. In another movie, it would never work in a million years, because it's served up in a different way.
I think it's the Spielbergian recipe as well, because you've got like Dante worked with Spielberg a lot.
This is also produced by Steven Spielberg.
It's Amblin, yeah, and it was mainstream. It was mainstream. Nowadays, like things like Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent have to be made indie because it's not an IP.
Absolutely. I've written here, just as a continuation of what you said, is Mr. Igo is the best bad guy henchman name ever invented. James Bond, eat your heart out.
He is a brilliant villain.
And it's also, I've written right underneath that, because this happens in the mall, that it just lingers on somebody in a penguin costume holding balloons for a very long time.
And then the camera like sort of pushes past the balloons and reveals him.
And I've written in caps, penguin holding balloons, why?
I'll tell you why.
Why?
Because Joe Dante has a sense of humor, one. Number two, it's a very tongue-in-cheek but awesome reveal of a bad guy. Because if you think about it, what you would have had with any other director is that you would have had it like sort of dollying past a crowd of people, and maybe it would have been like a plant, like a plant or something, or a fountain that would have revealed him or something like that. But because it's a guy or a woman in a penguin costume holding a bunch of balloons, it's an awesome reveal. It's a great shot, but it's tongue in cheek, and that's Dante to a T. You can just like boil down the Dante-ness in that shot.
I accept your explanation. I've also written underneath that, he has a fucking cyborg hand.
I just love that the gun barrel is in his finger. It's brilliant.
So good. No, so here's the thing.
He's got a point.
He points and shoots a dart at him. That's not where I wrote this moment, because
is it
I was
a dart
like,
or a bullet?
It's whatever it is.
Right, okay.
He shoots him with his finger, and I'm like, okay, he has like a gun in his glove or something or whatever. But then he's in the car later, and he twists his hand off, and he's got like a wrist with wires coming out of it. And I was out loud. I went, he's a fucking cyborg, like literally. And I did not remember that from when I watched it as a kid. And I was like, this is brilliant. I was like sitting there like with
I love Mr. Igo. I love when he gets injected into Martin Short. There's a like if you remember, if anyone remembers the movie For Your Eyes Only, okay, direct comparison to a Bond villain. There is one of the villains is in one of these like sort of underwater suits, with like sort of pincers kind of thing. and they go after James Bond and Melina, and when they're underwater in the sunken ship.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just reminds me of that Mr. Igo then comes out, and this movie came out like 6 years after
He's silent,
For Your Eyes
right?
Only.
He doesn't have any dialogue.
No,
That's also
doesn't have
like
any dialogue.
very, very James Bond.
It just really reminded me of that like they're kind of, they're inside Martin Short, but they're underwater, and he's in a suit, and he comes with the pincers.
Yeah,
and
he gets dissolved in
stomach acid.
It's brilliant that Dennis Quaid, he psychs him out. He freaks him out. Like he says to him, I need some stomach acid here, and he's like, I'm kind of
really
going
calm.
through. He's like, I'm actually feeling quite calm right now because he's lying on Meg Ryan's lap, right?
Jack, I think I found something down here.
And he's like, what is it? Oh my god, is it a tumor? Oh my god, I knew it's a tumor. And he starts like he's like playing into this hypochondriac thing, and he's like, oh my god, there goes my ulcer, and then his stomach acid like melt the guy. And it's really funny and really clever.
But one issue that I had with that is, how did he manage to get, because his thrusters were destroyed by Mr. Igo.
Yeah.
How did he manage to get out of the stomach acid and up into the nasal cavity?
Maybe only one of his thrusters. I don't know.
Anyway, that was a slight plot hole that I found. But anyway,
I've written underneath this. Well, actually, underneath the cyborg hand, I've written again, I really love this concept. And then underneath that, and I'm going to move away from the microphone so I don't break your ears.
Yes.
But Martin Short is incredible. I haven't seen him in enough things. And then next to that, I'm possessed! Just him sitting in the doctor's office.
Yeah.
And suddenly he hears Dennis Quaid talking to him. And he's like, we gotta talk, buddy. No, we don't. We gotta talk. And then he just jumps out of his seat and goes, I'm possessed!
No, but I love that there's this
spat my
wonderful
drink out over on my computer screen.
There's this wonderful sort of dialogue, choreography and rhythm that's sorted out, that he's going, Did you hear that? And he's sitting between two people in the doctor's waiting room, and says, did you talk to me? And the guy goes, no. And then Tuck says something, and then he replies to Tuck, and then somebody else replies to him.
Yeah.
And it's so well done.
Yeah.
So well done.
Absolutely.
So Martin Short, I don't know what you've seen, but there's a movie also called Three Fugitives.
Not seen it.
With Nick Nolte. Arguably a much more successful combination is Nick Nolte and Martin Short versus Nick Nolte and Eddie Murphy in 48 Hours. Okay. And there's a sweetness to the Nick Nolte Martin Short relationship in Three Fugitives, where he goes into a bank, Martin Short, and he holds it up because he's trying to sort of fund I think an operation for his daughter. This is before Sandman,
right?
And Nick Nolte is an ex-con who's just been released that day. And Martin Short decides to take Nick Nolte hostage, and the police think that Nick Nolte is behind the heist, and it's just they end up on the run together, and it's Nick Nolte and Martin Short and his little girl, and Nick Nolte has this budding relationship with Martin Short, who he calls asshole throughout the entire movie, and also starts to warm to the little girl, and there's these like really warm, sweet scenes between the two of them. And it's Martin Short just generally like for example, he goes into the bank and shoots the gun in the air, and immediately a whole lot of plaster falls down on his head. Like, it's just I love his physicality.
He's a moving cartoon character. A moving cartoon character. What a redundant thing to say. I meant he's a human cartoon character. It's so, or a live action cartoon character. It's really, really funny to me that whole dancing scene. And he's like,
the dancing scene is amazing, and the mugging,
rolling, and it's just, I had so much fun watching that. And I felt, this is why I wrote this. Like, like Martin Short is incredible. I haven't seen him. So it was a bit of a revelation to me, because the most recent thing that I've seen him in is The Morning Show, where he's being he's being a sleazeball. Right?
He is very, very skin crawly in that show. And I think it just shows how much range he has.
And I'm just like,
and also
why
like
isn't
Only
he
Murders in the
more
Building.
stuff?
Have you seen that? Only Murders in the Building.
No.
That's also a good show with it's him and Steve Martin.
Okay.
It's just he is. I would watch him in anything.
I've decided. So would I. He's his smile is so, charismatic. Like, it's not the same as Dennis Quaid's smile. Dennis Quaid's smile is Han Solo's smile. It's the
Joker smile.
No,
he's got a Joker
it,
smile.
I'm talking more about the rogue smile, right?
Like, I haven't seen Dennis Quaid in a lot of things recently, but his smile has carried through to Jack Quaid, his son, and is now on our screens once again in Scream.
On our
screens once again in Scream, and The Boys.
The Boys.
Martin Short.
I really like the fact that he goes from this hypochondriac to suddenly believing, because he kisses Meg Ryan and therefore, Tuck is moved over to her body somehow, which is something I don't know. Because that happens, he believes that he's still inside him, and he says to Meg Ryan, when one of the villains comes up the stairs, he's like, "Don't worry, Tuck's going to give me the strength of 10 men."
Yeah, because he says to him earlier, he sort of like establishes that he's stimulating his adrenal glands, right?
Exactly. He's like, he's going to give me the strength of 10 men, and then he just punches the guy and knocks him down the stairs, and then Tuck starts playing. This is a Meg Ryan moment that I actually really liked. I went back to watch it again just because of how well she delivers the moment when she realizes that she can hear the song, and she says, "He's playing our song," and she does that little very loving giggle. Yeah, I felt that was very genuine.
Yeah, and also and in contrast as well, not in contrast, and to add to that moment, that Dennis Quaid is inside her, and he notices he comes up on the fetus that's in her womb, and he sees the baby, and his eyes start welling up, and he's like,
as a father,
that affected me.
That makes you go, just
No, but it also, like, something that we haven't talked about Dennis Quaid very much yet, but he gives an incredible performance, especially when you consider that he's confined to a chair for almost the entire runtime, and he has to emote, and he has to sell to you that he's in this spaceship kind of thing in somebody else's body, and it's such a ridiculous concept that if the two leads don't sell it, then you're not going to believe it. Yeah. In the same way that you believe that Patrick Swayze really is dead, and he's trying to communicate with Whoopi Goldberg in Ghost. It's and that's also like one of those sort of like high concept 80s movies that is, so well plotted, and the concept is really wrung for like everything it's worth. And you feel like when you get to the end of a movie like that they've really
gone through something.
They've gone through something, but also that the filmmakers have really maximized that concept, which is not something that sometimes I watch something today.
It's a great idea, but
the execution wasn't. It's almost as if they're trying to sort of pay lip service, like Dark Phoenix, for example. That you really just don't feel that they've given it their all. Yeah. Whereas these sort of original concepts that they were coming up with in the 80s are just so rich. Yeah. That and they really like ring them for all their worth.
I really believe that Martin Short's character went through that whole thing, and that he notices that the cowboy is in the car and has driven off with them, the newlyweds. And I believe that he will leap into the car and go off to rescue them. Like, so I believe that's like
so
his
like jumping forward
arc
to the end. That's something that you don't see very much today either, is the setup for a sequel that's never meant to be made.
Yeah.
And I love that as an ending to this movie. It's
the
like
adventures continue, but you're never going to see it. You have to imagine that.
I'm not sure if they ever would have made a sequel, but this movie flopped on release for some reason. And I think that the audiences
I'd love
were
to know
always
from
behind.
The commentary if he says that he was planning a sequel or not. I want to know.
I highly, highly doubt it. I think it was one of those things
that was just played for.
Yeah. In the same way that a Bond villain ended up at the end of the movie sometimes ended up on the train or something like that. That Baron Samedi was never meant to be paid off.
Yeah.
It was just a thing that they added in at the end. But I feel like audiences were generally, aside from Gremlins, I think the audiences were generally behind Joe Dante.
Yeah.
They were sort of like a few steps behind him, and he was like ahead of the curve, because nowadays I watch those movies and I just can't understand how people didn't connect with them. Yeah. The Burbs, for example, is such a great...
That's one that we need to watch.
Such a great movie. And it's so dark and like the gallows humor. And it's just and also Gremlins 2 is like zany and crazy and so ahead of its time. The Matinee as well is a movie that I don't know if you've seen that.
I haven't.
But it's a movie that that also is like it's a snapshot in time. It's about nostalgia, and they do a parody movie of like The Fly, those kinds of like 50s sci-fi movies, and it's so on point. And that also wasn't particularly well received. There's just so many of those movies that he made that you know I have absolutely no idea how they weren't beloved at the time. But I guess that's what makes him so revered today is that people have discovered those movies after the fact, and they become cult. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway,
I just I want to say one more thing about the movie before we move on to the trivia corner.
Okay.
Is about the bad guy shrinkage. It's just a bit like there were two things in the movie that crossed the cartoony line for me, and I can't explain why I was able to accept everything else and not these two things.
Right.
One was the face changing thing where
I love that.
Dennis Quaid
I just think it's so
reshapes his face from inside. Which is odd.
You have to suspend disbelief for that, but I think it's so hilarious. Robert Picardo has two who plays the cowboy and is also a Dante regular, as is Dick Miller, who plays the cab driver at the beginning, and Henry Gibson, who plays the store manager, who plays the next door neighbor. Yeah. In the Burbs.
You told me about the Burbs, and I watched a trailer for it, and I was like, I need to do this as a podcast episode where I don't watch it without you. Like, we need to watch that one together. Yeah.
And I think also Monster Squad falls under that category as well, because you haven't seen that and I have. And it's also very 80s. So so Robert Picardo gives a fantastic performance in this movie as the cowboy. It's almost like it's from another movie. You know, he's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
But once Martin Short changes into the cowboy and his face changes, Robert Picardo then has to imitate Martin Short's mannerisms.
His movements. That dinner scene, not that dinner scene, that sort of negotiation scene, right? That was a worthwhile payoff to that ridiculous thing. It's just it was too cartoony, the transformation somehow. I don't know.
I love that, and the effects as well that you're going to talk about a little bit later, like the sort of the prosthetics and the kind of like models, animatronics. It's Rob Bottin who did a lot of that kind of stuff in the 80s and 90s. Also American Werewolf in London, he did the transformation, and he did the Arnold Schwarzenegger's eyes popping out of his head in Total Recall. It wasn't bad. It was just it made me go, okay, what the fuck. And then also the mini bad guys, the mini bad guys make me laugh. And the fact that they end up inside the suitcase
so
at the
dumb.
end.
And she's like, it smells bad in here, and he's like, shut up, like, and then they close the lid on her. So I was like watching that, I was like, okay, I can understand that the cowboy is perhaps a reason for Martin Short to jump in the car and whatever, but currently those two bad guys are stuck in a suitcase and very small, not much of a threat,
right? But like to sort of like underline your point here about the cartooniness, I noticed that in the club scene. So they go to a club, they follow the cowboy to a club, and Meg Ryan starts dancing with the cowboy, and the cowboy does a kind of lasso movement, whipping the lasso around his head, and Dante put in a whipping sound effect that goes, and that to me is hilarious.
There's a lot of like cartoony. The whole movie is cartoony. But anyway, I digress.
I don't watch it that often because I just enjoy experiencing it every time fresh. I enjoy that the amount of fun that I have with it is just amazing. It's a great movie, and I've gushed about this enough.
I have too.
Yeah. So now we're going to go on to Trivia Corner. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the behind the scenes. There's not a lot here because I didn't have time.
Okay.
But I think we're running long on the podcast
Yep,
anyway,
we are.
so here we go. Director Joe Dante originally turned this movie down when it was written as a sci-fi spy movie. After making Explorers 1985, the story was rewritten as a sci-fi comedy. It's still a sci-fi spy movie.
It's still a sci-fi spy
but
movie.
I think the point is that it was written straight and he wanted to make it comedic.
Right.
Which
Works.
for this concept
you have to
has to be
have
tongue in
a sense
cheek.
of humor about it.
And I can't think of anybody who would have done this concept justice like Dante. Yes, I am in love with Joe Dante, and if you want to write in the comments that you think we should get married or something like that, fuck you all. Dante was interested.
A little bit sensitive, aren't you?
A little bit sensitive, yeah. Nobody said anything yet. I'm already reacting
You're already
to the
having
internet
a go at people who haven't said anything.
exactly.
But now people are going to say something because they know that it tweaks your
You had
nipples,
an affair
so-
with Richard Williams, so I'm having an affair with Joe Dante.
Have an affair with Richard Williams. It was real.
It was real. Dante was interested once one of the writers reworking the script said, imagine if somebody like Dean Martin is put in a space pod, miniaturized into a syringe and injected into the body of somebody like Jerry Lewis, which is a great way to boil that down.
Yeah.
So Dante changed his mind, but the script was given to executive producer Steven Spielberg, who offered it to director Robert Zemeckis, which would have been just after Back to the Future.
Okay.
But thank God Robert Zemeckis didn't make it because he ended up making Roger Rabbit instead.
With my paramour,
Richard Williams. So Zemeckis turned it down. He didn't want to make it, so Spielberg offered it to Dante, who accepted. Cinematographer John Horer, who had previously worked as Joe Dante's cinematographer on all of his movies, was cast as Ozzy after Steven Spielberg suggested him to play the absent-minded professor. The thing is that this, when I read this piece of trivia yesterday, I was like, oh, because there's a quality about Ozzy that's very natural, that's very unactorly, I guess. Director Dante and producer Michael Finnell were very skeptical about the idea, and Spielberg insisted that they give him a screen test just to see, and was cast after impressing them. Now he is a good casting choice because he doesn't have that that sort of familiarity, I guess. He doesn't have any actorly twitches or anything like that.
Right.
So I always remembered that character.
Okay.
The first cut was overwhelmingly positive. It had a positive reaction by the crew and Warner Brothers executives. They were very excited to release it and hoped it would be their biggest movie for the studio, as was the case with Joe Dante and Steven Spielberg's previous collaboration, Gremlins. Although the film was released on Independence Day weekend, the advertising for it was minimal and it flopped at the box office. I don't think it speaks to the necessarily the quality of the movie, but I will say that a lot of times, as I said before, Dante's humor hasn't necessarily been wholly understood by audiences, so that could also be it. It is a very funny and ridiculously cartoony movie. So anyway, that was Trivia Corner. All right, I've taken the wheel on this episode long enough. What have you got for us?
Right, okay.
Join me in the VFX attic. Where else can you see VFX in an attic other than VFX
Attic. So there's something I've written here that I wanted to go over. This is more about design than anything else. But the cool thing about the design of the machine and all of that whole section in the lab at the beginning is it looks all very experimental and low-tech, like it's designed almost looking paper mache. It's not just in the design of the prop.
Yeah.
It's in the design of these scientists and the way they design things. Like he's talking about, at the beginning, he's got like a little robot arm that's supposed to pour vodka into a cup for him and it doesn't work. And then later on in the movie, he says, oh yeah, that's another thing by these scientists that doesn't work. It's not like a beautiful CG spaceship affair like you'd have now.
Yeah.
Right? And it looks like it's been cobbled together on a low budget by these. And I'm not, not talking about the quality of the prop. I don't know if you were listening to the dialogue while they're sort of, all systems go, whatever. First of all, Ozzy is talking to a camera. There's a moment where he's sort of like, just ignore all of this these papers and this junk all over this place. It's like there's like coffee cups that are like lying around. Like it's very messy. It's very not clean. It's not like the lab in what's that movie called? Fuck it. Stargate. What the hell is wrong with my brain? Please cut that out.
No, I got that from the tune.
Yeah, no, I know, but my brain was just like...
No, that you're good.
I conked out for a minute. So and they're talking about the materials that they were using, and I think that there's a moment where he said, "Oh yeah, and we had to cobble this together from some cheap like piping or whatever it was," and I'm like, okay, so it's meant to look like that, and and there's a thing where he gets inside, Dennis Quaid gets inside the machine and he's turning it on and it's not working. He has to like flick at the console to get it working. It's the same sort of quality that the DeLorean has, only a bit more manky, you know? It's like, it's not...
It reminds me of that scene in Wayne's World when they're shooting the show in the basement, the console starts sparking.
And he like takes a hammer and starts
like hammering at it.
Yeah. So, yeah. And again, like ILM... involved in this movie, and
Dennis Muren.
They were so they basically constructed these large-scale sets representing sort of like the internal body organs and the pathways, and they were all filmed and composited. Like it's. And
what were they made out of?
I don't know. I don't have that written here.
They were made out of Jello, apparently.
What I've got here is that the miniatures were shot in an ILM cloud tank. I don't have anything about Jello, but they were liquid look of the internal environment. So they did a lot of sort of like upscaling and then downscaling and compositing, and they had the pod on one of those rod puppeteering things that they had for the Rocketeer, right? Where they had, the Rocketeer model on one of these pre-controlled robotic rods, and they would have it flying through
I would imagine...
the water tank, and it was submersible in water for this one.
Yeah.
And so, they've got like they're shooting it like they would shoot a spaceship on a blue screen.
Yeah, like similar to how they would have shot the spaceships in Star Wars or in Blade Runner or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And you've got there are these great moments where the spaceship is flying through blood vessels and whatnot, and it's really fun to look at. Like
and
it
looks
it's all
really
practical.
realistic.
It's all practical,
which is
on
why
blue screen.
Which is why I said like the effects in this movie have not aged.
Because most of this stuff is not an attempt. It's none of it really is an attempt. Not none of it. Some of it has some. I don't know if there's actually CG. Apart from like
I don't think so.
Maybe in the face changing scene, but I don't think so.
So the face changing scene I think
screen.
was shot at a low frame rate.
At a low shutter speed, you mean?
No, low frame rate.
Frame rate,
yeah, because it's sped up.
All right. So at a low frame rate, and then they had it moving.
Yeah,
really, yeah.
And then they would be switching out the
actor and
the
like
actor
cutting
and
between them,
cutting between the sort of the prosthetic heads and stuff like that by Rob Bottin.
You know what? Now that's probably how I would do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but like I'm like thinking about it, and I'm like, this is all done as practically as possible in camera. Everything that can be done. They made like these large sets.
Yeah.
And that's why it all feels so cohesive.
Yeah.
So I just love the visual look of the movie. I love the inside the body thing. I think the baby is a puppet. It's a puppet inside the cloud tank.
I believe so, yeah.
And that looks, suitably both cute and creepy at the same time.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of really, really cool stuff going on in this movie.
I also noticed
it's not stuff we haven't talked about before in other episodes, so I'm not going to go too deep in it, and we can leave the attic and I'll untie you and everything.
Yeah.
But it's like it's one of those things where I say, they maximized, just like you said, like, they maximized on the actors that they had, and they squeezed every ounce of that talent of the plot.
Yeah.
Same thing with the effects. They really managed to maximize the technology and what they had at their disposal.
Because it's crucial that you believe it.
Yes. Because a moment in this movie that doesn't sell brings the whole thing down.
Yeah, absolutely. And also I noticed that there's a trick that was used in Total Recall, and I think also in Star Trek, the motion picture, is that they have a shot, like a wide shot of outside the spaceship, and you see Tuck inside it, and it's like sort of projected onto the window, like his image is projected onto sort of a reflective window, so it looks like he's inside it, and that's just like a really low tech but really effective shot. I noticed that because it's very easy to see now on Blu-ray and whatever, but at the time, it's very very seamless.
Yeah.
And I didn't see a lot of like matte lines or anything. It's so
it's
well
very
done.
well composited.
Yeah.
everything is really well composited. And
Dennis Quaid really sells it as well.
It's part of the performances as well, like and the cohesion of the choreography, like when Martin Short is drinking the alcohol to give it to Dennis Quaid, and Dennis Quaid has a little robot arm that comes out of the spaceship with his flask to catch it, and the two of them are going, oh yeah, whatever. It's all well put together, and I don't. It's all like that thing where you see the liquid being poured down the throat. That's a miniature model shot. It's not. There's no compositing there whatsoever. But the way that everything's edited together and just so for the composited moments as well, all of these things flow together and it tells a story, and it just feels like that whenever we're talking about the visual effects have to serve the plot of the movie and the story, that's what we're talking about, that cohesion and selling of it. And that's why when you see all these big CGI blockbuster movies, it's like a lot of this stuff doesn't really need to be CG.
Right.
You're doing it because you can, not because it has to be.
It's probably cheaper as well than building sets.
Sure, I'm not talking.
Like for example, like building a set and then destroying it is probably much more expensive
than
paying someone to sit and create it in CG.
I don't know how much
and
those
then destroying
things cost, but again, you look at a director who's as stubborn as Christopher Nolan, who will demand, let's demolish this building 3 times, like that is, it's still done today. I guess it's all about how you spend the rest of your budget,
right?
He puts visual effects in very specific moments in his movies,
things that are impossible,
that cannot be done.
And it's also it's never that the whole shot is CG.
Yeah,
it's something that's
usually
enhancing
a very
a real shot,
practical explosion with an enhanced something or other. Like whether it's I was watching I think it was Corridor Crew, and they were talking about Tenet,
right?
There's
Tenet,
where the soldiers are walking through the sand backwards or something, and there are these footprints in the gravel. That are sort of revealing themselves, or they're unrevealing themselves. Something's moving backwards, and they're like, that's a visual effect. That's something that enhances this movie and this shot. So
but they actually had people learning to do things backwards and how that would look. Yes. And instead of like just running the film backwards, one
of them is acting backwards and one of them is acting forwards. It's really cool.
VFX Attic.
There's something that I didn't talk about that I would like to for a moment, is that the sort of piggybacking on the idea of the sort of experience movie, the ordeal movie, that somebody's been through something and you feel as an audience member you've been through it, is the idea of 2 characters communicating throughout an entire movie. And then
never having met, and then meeting each other in the end, and that electricity that happens between them, that they're like best friends who are meeting for the first time. And I feel that same way when I watch Die Hard, and you see the relationship between McClane and Al, and I just think that the chemistry between Dennis Quaid and Martin Short is more successful than the chemistry between either of the two with Meg Ryan.
Well, also, they've been very intimate, the two of them, throughout the movie. There's also that moment where he comes out of the space pod, which is or the body pod, whatever you want to call it, the squid, where he comes out, and there's that whole, I can't take scenes like that seriously anymore, like Armageddon, where they come out of a spaceship, or whatever it is, the homecoming moment, because of the episode of Community where they get onto a sort of like space simulation truck, which is a KFC KFC vehicle game thing, and they have that whole moment at the end where they come out and Donald Glover hugs just a random person. He's like, it's so funny. And that moment where Dennis Quaid comes out and he hugs Martin Short, I was laughing because Community, like everything else, has ruined everything for me.
Right, so that's the point where parody starts to
It starts to ruin
Starts
what
to
you're
ruin,
watching.
yeah.
It's like, Austin Powers and all that.
But the funny thing is that it's played in that same way, exactly what you just described. But like it's played in the same way in Die Hard, which came out a year after this, actually. In that Dennis Quaid hugs his girlfriend or fiance at that point or whatever it is,
And the guy who helped him.
and the guy who helped him, whatever. And Martin Short's just kind of standing there, like with a smile on his face, watching,
Like,
and then
I'm
and
happy
then
to
he,
see you're alive.
and then
sort of
he
thing.
spies him. Dennis Quaid spies Martin Short, and he's like,
He immediately recognizes
and then he
him.
recognizes him, and it's the same way in Die Hard that McClane's hugging Holly and whatever, and then he sees Al Powell, and he like sort of mouths Powell, and then they go over and they have like this hug and. It's exactly that. Go and watch that scene, everybody, and you will find out that is exactly how it sounds.
Okay.
So
I don't remember that, but now
it's just
I've
interesting
seen
that
Die Hard so many times.
It's just interesting that two movies that were probably being made more or less at the same time that have exactly the same, sort of finale. But anyway, I enjoy that kind of thing, and it's a great payoff.
It was just that Community, the bastards.
Community ruined a lot of things, like
or did it make them better?
like Jeff Winger, you son of a bitch.
It's
and now
exactly that.
every
It's the
time
same thing.
you see that macho 80s movie, with the two
Dylan,
guys,
you son of a bitch.
That was fun. I think we should do another movie along the same lines.
I'm ready to
next
watch
time.
The Burbs or Monster Squad if you want.
Yeah.
Unless there's something
more pressing. No, nothing. I really enjoyed rewatching this movie, and I enjoyed chatting about it with you.
Yep, me too.
And I hope you lot enjoyed listening to it.
Let's try not to have such a long hiatus this time.
Well, let's hope that nobody gives anybody else COVID.
I didn't give you fucking COVID, Johnny.
You totally gave me COVID.
I gave you COVID, but you don't need to tell everybody I gave you COVID. It's not like I did it on purpose.
Bye-bye.
Bye. What's our seat number?